Oh my god, I made the worst mistake ever. I made the biggest creator mistake ever. Alright, so I wasted one entire recording. So let's talk a little bit more about Elaine as if nothing ever happened. And yes, I do not have any more attempts to Phobetor, but at least there is a replay function which hopefully works. So there is one major shift in the way that I am using Elaine, or at least in terms of a function, I am shifting her away from DPS, more towards support, actually more towards control. So I'm actually going to give her more speed, more accuracy, like a lot more accuracy, and just very little focus into her offensive power, because we have already showcased her kit with a pure offensive build and her DPS was just like super freaking subpar. So I've decided to change up her equipment pieces as well. So now we are going to be using the Ocean set so that she can cycle her skills more effectively. There is no way that I'm going to drop skill ups on her just because of how that only affects her cooldowns. And apart from that, her damage goes up by just a little bit, which is something that I really cannot care too much about right now. So this is just going to be the new build for her, and let me just show you why this works, and I will explain a little bit more about where she might shine in as well. Alright, so there you go. Let's load up this run. I actually had a better run. I had like a 12 million something run. Nice. Okay, so we managed to load our replay, thankfully. Okay, so the way this team is supposed to work right now, okay, or at least the way Elaine is supposed to work now, is I've decided to move her away from offensive power because her damage is just so subpar for like most content, right? Like let's say Fafnir, Sonica, blah blah blah. Her damage is really bad, but her controls, her sleeps, they are really good, which is what makes her an excellent choice in Phobetor. And this is probably also the reason why they made her a free Esper. And believe it or not, she might actually become a fusion Esper in the future as well. She's not going to perform very well in terms of her DPS. And in terms of control, she lands sleep. It's not stuns, it's not petrification. So it's not that useful, not that global. As such, I do feel like she might become the next Fafnir fusion. So we have Jin Yu Yao now. We also have the Phaeton Sisters. These are for Apep and Chronos respectively. We do not have a legendary Esper for fusion for Fafnir just yet. And it seems like it's going to be Elaine, because she is not super broken like Gabrielle. She's not super broken like Ahmed. So I think she kind of fits the bill. Now, the reason why I decided to shift her build away from DPS is because she will do very well with a better uptime on her skills, especially her second and her third skills. Now, it's not so much about her Night Goddess buff, it's more for the sleeps and the multi-hit that she brings. So, with the multi-hit and with good accuracy, let's say you have like 80% accuracy and a lot more speed than I do, you're going to be able to cycle and sleep the boss very effectively, and you're going to have a situation where the boss is going to be asleep most of the time, which is great for your DPS. So you're going to deal more damage, you're going to protect your team a little bit more, and well, possibly not get hit because I don't have any healers here. But this lineup is kind of working out really well for us. So I think this team actually did 5.6 million, if I remember correctly. And that is of course just with one simple test. But if we were to maybe make her full control, right? So reduce her attack power, reduce her crit damage, just more focus on accuracy, more focus on speed, then I think this team can actually perform a lot better. So the rest of your DPS Espers, they can just sit back, relax, do the damage that they need to do, and she's going to be able to control Phobetor the way that Phobetor needs to be controlled. So that is Phobetor. Now let's discuss a little bit more about Sonica and Dark Starlord, which is where I feel like the game has designed her for. So for Sonica, right, we have already talked about Sonica. She multi-hits, which is good, okay, it's decent in terms of DPSs. So she's going to be like the starter DPS for Sonica. You're not going to be using her if you have unlocked other Espers. Like if you have Louis, you have Gaius, okay, maybe not Gaius, Gaius is still currently bugged. Or you have Chloe, you have Ophelia, these Espers, they're going to perform much better in Sonica. So Elaine is going to be just the early game setup for you. That's about it. But in terms of Dark Starlord, I feel like she has a lot of potential. And that's because I think a lot of the endgame players right now, we are struggling to find an Esper that is similar to Gaius, in a sense that Gaius has both buff strips and buff block. So Gaius carries two very important kits in carries two very important effects in his entire kit, which is something that Elaine also has. So she together with Zora, who is not consistent, right? Because Zora only has a single hit on her third skill for the buff block, and Zora's buff still is on her second skill, but Zora needs to be built offensively, so she's going to be naturally a little bit slower, blah blah blah. Elaine actually fits the criteria very nicely, so she's going to be like the next Gaius in terms of buff stripping and buff blocking. So she's already very good in the second phase of Dark Starlord. Elaine is absolutely absolutely 100% really good for Dark Starlord and Phobetor. And I guess it's a really nice touch that they created an Esper that is good for free-to-play players for the Sentinel Hunt, because Sentinel Hunt right now is an extremely difficult content, and she kind of enables a lot of different players to at least participate in the Sentinel Hunt. But I'm not taking away from the fact that her DPS output is just completely garbage. Her DPS output is still really bad, and I feel like that might need some looking into unless they intend to just make her a mid-Esper. If that is the case, then yeah, sure. Fine, at least she's free. Let me just show you the DPS spread, right? So we reduced her DPS a little bit. She's still doing okay. She has 888,000, which obviously you cannot compare her to the likes of Sender and the likes of Embla. That is not going to be the case at all. And yeah, okay. Now let's quickly do a showcase on Fafnir and why I say that her DPS is just really bad. So we're actually going to compare her to KFC, which is something that you guys also brought up. Okay, so a few of you guys also mentioned that we cannot compare her DPS to Yunchuan because Yunchuan does AoE damage. So we can only compare her to, let's say, KFC, right? Because KFC is just pure single target damage. They kind of do the same things. They have offensive power, they have buff strip as well, and they have multi-hits. So they both have pretty similar setups. So Li Guang is also on the Ocean set with quite low attack, but relatively decent crit damage with full crit rate. She don't need the full crit rate actually, but it's just something that I have her built with. Now, even though I reduced Elaine's damage output by quite a great amount, right? Do take note that her crit damage is still pretty decent and her attack power is still pretty decent. So in terms of general stats, she is pretty much on par with Li Guang in terms of just stats. If anything, we should be seeing Elaine just doing like shy of like maybe 10% of the damage that Li Guang can do, but that will not be the case for this run. Let's check this out. Okay, so now that we're at the boss fight, let's just see how much damage they can individually do, right? So Li Guang's second skill did 25 point... Or is that her first skill? I'm actually not sure, but whatever. Regardless, it is still more damage than Elaine's third skill. Yeah, that was Elaine's third skill. Elaine did 22k, Li Guang did 25k. So another thing that a few of you guys mentioned is that we cannot compare Elaine's DPS to Yunchuan because Yunchuan does AoE damage. And we also cannot compare Elaine, who did less damage than Gabrielle, because Gabrielle also does AoE damage, which is kind of true, but what you notice is that KFC is just far superior to even Yunchuan's damage output, which we will check after this run. Look at this, right? 122,000 damage. Like, there is no way without an attack buff that Elaine could have done something similar at all. But she's really good for the shield remover, I must say. She's really good for new players if they are struggling with removing the shield effects. Okay, so this run took us 56 turns, which is not bad, I think. It's definitely one of our better runs. So let's take a look at DPS spread. Li Guang is dealing so much damage, and there are times that Li Guang actually far exceeds Yunchuan in terms of the DPS output. It really comes down to RNG. But as you can see, Elaine is falling so far behind in DPS with Li Guang. So for the people who didn't believe that Elaine does poor damage, right, I hope this is enough evidence to showcase that her damage output is really not good. And even if you give her full skill ups, even if you increase her DPS back again, let's say I doubled all her DPS output. If I doubled it, it's still not the same as Li Guang. In fact, it is still less by about 10,000, and this is one of the runs that Li Guang has performed her worst. So I realized I could blitz runs and then skip to the end result and see the damage spread. And take a look at this, right? We blitz one time. You can see that Li Guang is doing far superior damage to Yunchuan, and even though Yunchuan is doing AoE damage and Yunchuan is doing a lot of assist damage, Li Guang is still carrying the bulk of the fight with a 304,000 damage output, as compared to Elaine, who is struggling at 113. So this is why I feel like Elaine should probably go away from DPS. I think it's better if she is just run full support, just a lot of speed, a lot of accuracy. That is all she needs to do. But of course, running full support on Fafnir is going to eat a lot of turns. I wouldn't really recommend it, especially if you're trying to get 8 memo chip runs. That is probably not the build that you want for Elaine. But for the most part, if you're just going to be using her in Phobetor and in Dark Starlord, just make her super fast, a lot of accuracy, that's about it. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Derek Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.